The documentary on war crimes in Gaza perpetrated by the Israeli army not only horrified me, because whatever you think happened, it was actually worse. It put some serious questions in my mind when it comes to not only the Israeli army, but Israeli society. The people who felt comfortable with filming themselves committing crimes, from vandalism to violence to murder, were not only the poorly trained volunteers that came from all over the world to participate in a mission of revenge. They were professional soldiers, from rank and file to officer. And not content with filming themselves committing those crimes, they posted them online under their own names. Because all of the documentary is based on videos that Israeli soldiers put of themselves online. These men and women who participated in these war crimes didn't just put themselves at risk, both physically, because they just painted targets on their backs, and criminally, because they filmed themselves and posted themselves committing the crimes. They put every single person that they love at the risk of violence as well. Because if people can't get to them, they will get to the people that they love. They also shredded the narrative that stated that the Israeli army was in any way moral and, more than anything, organized. Because where was the oversight on any of this? Where was the control of the armies on the ground? Where was the discipline? Slavocrat founding father and military genius George Washington once stated that discipline is the soul of an army. It makes small forces formidable. It procures success to the weak and esteem to all. A sentiment that has been echoed from the words of the Chinese philosopher Sun Tzu in the 6th century, to 19th century military genius Shaka Zulu, to American President Dwight Eisenhower. The Israeli army is not behaving like an army. In the words of Karl von Clausewitz, Prussian military strategist, they are a mob. Because an undisciplined army is an unarmed mob. But do they see themselves as a mob? Because they appear pretty comfortable with what they're doing. But that's an observation that I think comes mostly from people like you and me. People who are observing this and are not Israelis. That are on the outside of this massacre. According to the poll from Pew Research from May this year, which is one of the most conservatives that I found, only 19% of Israelis had found that the use of force in Gaza had gone too far. 39% said it was just about right. And a whopping 34% had said that it was not enough. And this sort of behavior isn't happening in a vacuum. Because in the last year, we have seen in social media sites like Instagram, like TikTok, like the now defunct Omegle, like YouTube, that the dehumanization of Palestinians is a source not only of popularity for Israeli influencers, but also of money, because of the millions of views that they receive every time that they do a video of this type. Based first on the pain and the death of Palestinians, of their starvation, of their inability to be able to consume water, and more recently, of Lebanese people. All of these people who are doing this are young. In my opinion, these soldiers, these influencers, do not see anything wrong with what they're doing because they don't think that Palestinians are people. To be able to understand how they got there, we need to understand the Israeli education system from its roots to now. Because in context, they are the perfect product of the education system, a segregated, ethnocentric, religious-inspired education system that encourages only Jewish Israelis to see themselves as a community, as a people with a God-given mandate and a purpose. Based on the very real history of oppression of Jewish people throughout Europe at the hands of other Europeans. And that people in Israel and outside of it use as an excuse and justification for the ethnic cleansing-based exercise of nation building that is Israel. There's a fascinating paper from the University of Haifa from Professor Ayman Akbaria on this topic, in which he traces not only the inception of the apartheid-based, supposedly equal but separate education system in Israel, in which Palestinian Israelis and Druze and Jewish Israelis have their own differently funded and differently focused parallel education systems, but how, like everything in Israel, from its left-wing beginnings, it has been captured by the religious right, by the ethno-nationalist right, and transformed into a tool that, according to an investigation from Vox, has secured something that you do not see anywhere else in the world. which is to create a majority of 72% of 18 to 24-year-olds that are right-wing nationalists. So coming back to the soldiers, they put it out there because they didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. People in the army were slow to reply and to start trying to censor their posts on social media because the first line of the people that saw this didn't see anything wrong with it. Something that potentially they themselves do because the army in Israel, like everything, is slowly shifting. For the first time in its history, in 2024, 2/5 of the infantry officer cadets come from nationalist and religious backgrounds associated and defending of the settler movement. And this progression that I consider natural for any ethno-state is the reason why secular Israeli elites are at this moment running away from the country. But whilst this responds to the question of why there is social acceptability to these types of posts, and why do the people in the army think that it was acceptable to put those posts out there, it doesn't necessarily explain why they thought us in the international community were going to be okay with this. To be able to answer this question, we have to look in-house, specifically at our legacy media. Let me bring to your attention two articles written by the Financial Times. One from October 13, 2023, and the other one from October 3rd, 2024. By analyzing them, you will understand why Israeli soldiers and the Israeli population at large still feel somewhat conflicted with the criticism that they are receiving from the rest of the world. To say that both of these articles participate on what Noam Chomsky calls the manufacturing of consent is to be generous. Look at the difference of the description of Israelis and the Israeli army and of Hamas and the Palestinians. Do you notice the difference here? Do you notice the sentence that manufactures the consent to target civilians? Israelis are portrayed as people, they are given a voice. And the voice of the Israeli army and the Israeli politicians echoes in every single word that our Western legacy media produces. The information that they give us is taken at face value from how Hamas fighters melt into the population, generating the perception that if you make a mistake, it's understandable. If someone who's not Hamas dies, it's understandable because these fluid, preternatural warriors use them as a shield. And the same playbook is being repeated at this moment with Lebanon. Nowhere in this article is Lebanon presented as anything more than a fighting arena, despite of the fact that it is a sovereign nation. The perspective taken by the journalist, the default perspective, is the perspective of the Israeli army. The Israeli army that is described as being tired because of the operations in Gaza, without explaining what exactly those operations were. The destruction of almost 60% of all infrastructures in Gaza, which included hospitals and schools and monuments, the erasure of homes, the implosion of universities. The death toll that in June was calculated to be more than 186,000 people. An Israeli army that after the death in a week of more than 2,000 Lebanese people, 28 healthcare workers in 24 hours of bombardment of hospitals and of ambulances. These articles are not the exception, they're the rule of a Western media that is incapable and unwilling to escape its own biases. And this never-ending cheerleading, this manufacturing of consent, allows Israeli soldiers to feel that they're the heroes of the story, that there's not going to be any punishment, any reckoning, any consequences for anything that they do. And what we're seeing at this moment is just the tip of the iceberg, because the actions of Western media when it comes to Israel, specifically in the last 20 to 30 years, the uncritical, deferential tone that they take, influenced by years of media representations of the Israeli army, of the Mossad as heroes, is creating the trap that will not only impact Israeli citizens and the Israeli army and their victims, it will impact us.